the child who wasn't loved. But God had a plan. In the small town of San Gabriel, surrounded by mountains and dusty roads, lived a boy named Mateo. He had no mother or father, and no one knew where he had truly come from. The only thing known for certain was that one morning, Sister Clara found him at the church door, wrapped in a tattered blanket. From that day on, Mateo grew up amidst the whispers of the people and the distrustful looks. He was not welcome in the homes of the town. The children avoided him, and the adults spoke of him as if he were an omen of misfortune. "That boy brings nothing good," some of the elders would say. "He's a burden to everyone," others would murmur. Mateo heard every word, but never responded. Only Sister Clara offered him comfort. "It doesn't matter what they say, my child," she would say as she stroked his hair. "God has a purpose for each one of us." Mateo wanted to believe it, but every day it became harder. One afternoon, while walking on the outskirts of the town, he came across a dry stream. The earth was cracked from the lack of rain. He sighed and sat on a rock, gazing at the horizon. "If God has a purpose for me, why do I feel so alone?" he whispered, but the wind gave no answer. Days passed, and Mateo continued to feel like a stranger in his own home. Sister Clara welcomed him with love, but he longed for something more, to belong, to be accepted. One morning, while helping sweep the church courtyard, he heard laughter in the distance. It was the children of the village playing in the square. Mateo watched them with nostalgia, wishing he could join them. "Look who's there!" shouted Tomas, one of the older boys, the orphan from the church. The others laughed, and Mateo lowered his gaze. "Leave him alone, Tomas," intervened Lucia, a girl with curly hair. "He hasn't done anything wrong." "He doesn't need to do anything wrong," Tomas replied mockingly. "He's just here, and that's enough." Mateo clenched his fists but said nothing. He turned and walked away, a lump in his throat. That night, when Sister Clara brought him dinner, Mateo barely ate a bite. "You're not hungry, my child," she said softly. "What's wrong?" Mateo looked at her with tears in his eyes. "Why doesn't anyone love me, sister? Why did God leave me alone in this world?" Sister Clara took his hands gently. "God never leaves us alone, Mateo. Sometimes his plan takes time to reveal itself, but when it does, we realize he was always with us." Mateo didn't respond. As much as he wanted to believe her, his heart still felt empty. The following days were difficult for Mateo. Though he tried to keep busy helping at the church, the rejection from the other children continued to weigh heavily on his heart. One afternoon, while gathering firewood behind the convent, he heard a rustling among the bushes. He cautiously approached and found a thin, dirty dog, shivering from the cold. "What are you doing here, little one?" whispered Mateo, crouching down. The animal stepped back in fear, but when it saw that Mateo meant no harm, it stood still. With patience, the boy extended his hand, and after a few minutes, the dog approached and licked his fingers. "You have no home, just like me," Mateo said sadly. He carefully picked up the dog and took it to the church. When Sister Clara saw it, she smiled warmly. "Looks like you've found a friend. Can I keep him, sister? I'll take care of him, I promise." The nun looked at him kindly and nodded. "If you feed him and take good care of him, I don't think God will mind." That night, Mateo slept with the dog curled up beside him. For the first time in a long time, he felt he wasn't completely alone. He named him Luz, because in his dark life, the little animal became a ray of hope. Days passed, and the friendship between Mateo and Luz grew stronger. The boy found comfort in the company of the dog, who waited for him at the end of each day with a wag of its tail and a gaze full of loyalty. One afternoon, while Mateo was sweeping the church entrance, a group of village children approached. As usual, they began to mock him. "Look at him, the orphan boy with his stray dog." One of the boys laughed. "They're probably both hungry," another added maliciously. Mateo lowered his gaze, used to the hurtful comments. But before he could respond, Luz stepped in between him and the children, growling softly. "Your dog's a savage," one shouted, taking a step back. Sister Clara came out when she heard the commotion. With a firm but kind voice, she looked at the children. "Is this how you want to be remembered? As those who humiliate someone already suffering?" The children lowered their heads in shame. "Go home and think about your words," the nun concluded. When they left, Mateo hugged Luz tightly. "Thank you for defending me, friend." Sister Clara ruffled his hair lovingly. "God sees your heart, Mateo, and when you least expect it, he will show you that you were never alone." That night, the boy couldn't sleep. Sister Clara's words echoed in his mind. Could it be true that God had a purpose for him? That same night, a storm hit the village. The wind shook the convent windows, and the rain pounded hard on the church roof. Mateo huddled next to Luz on his small mattress, trying to ignore the thunder's roar. Suddenly, a loud bang was heard outside. Luz became alert and began to bark. Mateo jumped up and ran to the convent door. When he opened it, he saw a figure wrapped in a cloak, trembling in the rain. "My God!" Sister Clara exclaimed when she saw the person collapse at the threshold. It was an elderly man, soaked and weak, with a pale face and trembling hands. Mateo and Sister Clara helped him inside and settled him near the fire. "Thank you," the man whispered in a hoarse voice. "I thought I wouldn't make it." "What happened to you?" asked the nun as she offered him a blanket. "I got lost in the woods while traveling to the village. The storm disoriented me, and my strength gave out." Mateo looked at the old man with compassion. He had felt the weight of loneliness and abandonment on his own skin, and now someone else needed help. Without hesitation, he ran to the kitchen and brought a bowl of hot soup. The old man looked at him gratefully and took the soup with trembling hands. "You're a good boy," he said with a tired smile. "God bless you." Mateo felt warmth in his chest. Maybe Sister Clara was right. Maybe God had placed him there for something greater than he could ever know.
The elder fell asleep by the fire, his breathing growing more calm as he warmed up. Sister Clara covered him with another blanket and sighed in relief. "God brought him here at just the right moment," she murmured, looking at Mateo with a smile. The boy nodded silently, watching the fire crackle softly in the fireplace. Luz had settled at the feet of the elder, as if knowing that too, needed comfort. The next morning, when the storm had passed, the elder woke up with more strength. He sat slowly and looked at Mateo with tenderness. "Young man, I will never forget what you did for me," he said in a firm but kind voice. "In my life, I've seen many things, but few times have I met someone with such a noble heart." Mateo lowered his gaze, not knowing what to reply. Sister Clara approached and placed a hand on his shoulder. "He has a great heart," she affirmed proudly. "God has plans for him, even though we don't understand them yet." The elder smiled and got up with effort. "I must continue my journey, but before I go," he took a small medallion from his bag and placed it in Mateo's hands. "This object has been with me my whole life. I want you to have it." Mateo looked at the medallion in astonishment. It was golden and had an image of a dove surrounded by light engraved on it. "Let this symbol remind you that God is always with you," the elder said before bidding farewell. Mateo felt warmth in his chest as he watched the man walk away down the path. Something inside him had changed. Days passed, and Mateo couldn't stop thinking about the elder and the medallion he had given him. Every time he held it in his hands, felt an inexplicable peace, as if an invisible force enveloped him and reminded him that he was never truly alone. One afternoon, while helping Sister Clara organize the orphanage pantry, they heard hurried knocks at the door. When they opened it, they found a man dressed in fine clothes but soaked from the rain. "Please, I need help," he exclaimed desperately. "My Kerry got stuck in the mud, and my father, who is very old, is weak and can't walk much." Mateo felt his heart beat fast. There was something familiar about that voice. Without hesitation, he ran after the man to the road. When they arrived, his breath caught when he saw the elder inside the carriage. It was the same man he had helped that stormy night. Now, without his worn cloak and disheveled appearance, he looked completely different. The elder also recognized him immediately. His eyes lit up, and with a warm smile, he said, "I knew we would meet again, my son." Mateo looked at the younger man, who was still trying to move the carriage. "Is he your father?" he asked, surprised. The man nodded. "My father is a very wise man, but sometimes he disappears without warning. He always says that God guides him to where he needs to go, and it seems that this time, he led him to you." Mateo felt a chill run through his body. Suddenly, he understood that night had not been a mere coincidence. The elder slowly got out of the carriage with Mateo's help. His trembling hands clung to the young man with an affection that went beyond words. That day in the storm, the elder said in a serene voice, "God showed me the heart of a kind young man who didn't hesitate to help a stranger. You didn't know who he was or what he could give you in return. But still, you did it." Mateo felt a lump in his throat. He looked at the medallion that still hung from his neck and remembered the elder's words that night. "God always rewards kindness," he whispered, repeating what the man had said. The elder smiled and looked at his son. "Now it's my turn to reward you." The man who had guided them there, his son, looked at Mateo in astonishment. "My father owns many lands and businesses. He has helped build orphanages, hospitals, and shelters. But for years, he has been searching for someone who truly deserves the opportunity to manage one of his homes for the needy." Mateo felt his legs tremble. What do you mean?" The elder took his hands gently. "This orphanage, this place where you have given your life and your love, is now yours. I want you to lead it, to keep helping the children as you did with me that night." Mateo's eyes filled with tears. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Throughout his life, he had doubted nothing, but now understood that he had always possessed the most valuable thing, a heart willing to help without expecting anything in return. That night, Mateo looked at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for reminding me that those who give with love, receive in abundance." And with a renewed hope in his heart, he began a new chapter of his life, knowing that true wealth was not in material things, but in the love and faith we share with others.